When someone like Sabrina Carpenter is posed for a picture on all fours, it's framed as such a high concept, right? Symbolic even. If a black or a brown woman did the same pose with the same concept, what would society call it? Ghetto. Are white blondes reversing feminism? Literally no woman agrees with each other on this topic. We're so divided. Hi guys, I'm Tati, welcome to Tati's Media, where I get to inform you while offering my perspectives on different things in the media. Today we'll be talking about Sydney Sweeney, Sabrina Carpenter, and maybe how white feminism is actually reversing feminism in itself. Okay, so before I dive into this, it's a very heavy topic, it's a very controversial topic. We're going to be talking about feminism, race, women, men, like everything, okay? I want to preface this video by saying, I'm not here to criticize women for expressing their sexuality at all. I'm not here to say that certain types of femininity is wrong. I'm just interested in unpacking the larger patterns and reflection. I want to know what we've been calling empowerment, or if it's just performance. This is about culture, power, and how we frame feminism in social media. As always, I'm not the news, so if I get something wrong, please correct me in the comments below. Yes. Okay, so first, let's get into it. What's happening between Sydney Sweeney, Sabrina Carpenter? What does it have to do with feminism? In the recent weeks, two headlines have been going crazy on social media. First one being Sabrina Carpenter's album cover for Man's Best Friend. She's on all fours, very tied up and being pulled by suspectedly a man in a suit, by the way. Then we have Sydney Sweeney selling bathwater infused soap, and honestly it's been sparking debates for a while. Both have been defended as being empowering. However, it's also been claimed to be reversing feminism. Why do you say that, Tati? Why is everybody saying that? Because this aesthetic is hypersexualized and also submissive coded, and somehow it's being marked as empowering, which isn't new at all because this is a very familiar archetype. What archetype are you talking about, Tati? The soft, provocative pop princess archetype, aka we're gonna call it what it is, the white blonde pop star archetype as well. White blonde pop stars have been positioned as a face of feminism for a long time. Actually, I'll correct myself. It's been marketed as a face of mainstream femininity, I'll say. Think Britney Spears in the early 2000s, Madonna in the 80s, and even Marilyn Monroe. These women were constantly sexualized and often even punished for it, but at the same time they were also even rewarded when they were being overly sexual or provocative. They were labeled as flirtatious, girly, and performative. Fast forward to 2025, we're seeing Sabrina Carpenter and Sydney Sweeney kind of pull the same type of archetype. Sabrina's team says that her album cover is very symbolic. Sydney Sweeney's bathwater soap is marked as satire. What is everyone saying about this? Obviously, younger women have been vocal about how uncomfortable this makes them feel on both superstars' sides. They're not confused about the message, but they're literally seeing a woman on all fours being treated like a dog, and it doesn't feel liberating, it feels uncomfortable and regressive. At the same time, there are defenders of both Sabrina and Sydney Sweeney. People are saying that they're parroting the male gaze. They're playing with irony and reclaiming power. However, in my opinion, if everyone has to explain that as a joke, is the joke really landing? We love hearing from other creators on this account, and I think it's super important, especially with this topic, so let's see what other creators have to say about this.
If Sabrina Carpenter's album cover was effective satire, it would make men feel uncomfortable and women feel seen. It would use lighting, color, costuming, aesthetic to convey the role that women often feel put in as man's best friend in terms of being treated like a dog. It needed to be so subversive that men would not be able to gain pleasure from it or misinterpret it. She could have taken a risk and made herself look less desirable, ugly even. She could have put out an image that is so unsettling, so uncomfortable that it forces us to examine the dynamics of servitude between men and women in relationships. At the end of the day, this album cover is basically a honeypot for any dominant male FetLife user. Her facial expression is amorous, yearning, sexy, desirable, and seems to be truly enjoying the position of submission that she's in. And while it's fine that women explore kink, submission, and sexuality, this is a strange juxtaposition against her music and the message that she sends as a critique, generally, of the way that men behave in relationships. I think the reason that people are having such a hard time with this and with criticizing it in general is because people like Sabrina Carpenter a lot more than they like Sydney Sweeney. Sydney Sweeney is the woman that women have been trained and conditioned to hate, fear, and envy. Sabrina Carpenter came off funny, charming, sympathetic, and like a girl's girl. I need everybody to know it's okay to criticize people that you like, and that satire doesn't function as satire if it so closely mimics the very thing that it's trying to insult that you can't tell the difference. And as far as setting feminism back 100 years, I don't think Sabrina Carpenter has the power to do that, and I don't honestly think that people are even as upset as they think they are or about the things that they think they are. Honestly, I just think it was a very weird, ambiguous choice, and the photo's just not that good and not that interesting. It's been done to death 1,000 times. I expected more creatively.
Sabrina is crossing the line between sexual freedom and objectification whilst referencing the most disgusting book I've ever read. To someone who's never heard of Lolita, never read the book, never seen the movie, this might look like a regular photo shoot. By the way, I do not recommend watching the movie or reading the book if you're sensitive to child assault. This is a book about a man in his late 30s/early 40s, and his name is Humber, and he falls in love. The problem is, the object of his love is a 12-year-old girl. In this book, Humbert explains manipulation methods that he uses in order to get the little girl closer to him. He even pretends to be in love with the little girl's mother so that he can be the girl's stepfather and take her out and spend time with her without it being suspicious. Dolores is a 12-year-old girl being taken advantage of emotionally, sexually, and psychologically, while Humbert is blaming her for everything that happens because he believes that some little girls are born as nymphs. He claims to have noticed nymph-like behavior in very young girls. See, that's why it's so upsetting to see mainstream artists reference Lolita when you know the full story. As Nabokov said, this was never supposed to be a romance book. It was created to evoke that strange feeling inside you because you could never understand how Humbert can think so many disgusting things about a little kid. Seeing this photo shoot and then seeing the cover to her newest album, where she's on her knees being manhandled and grabbed by the hair, I'm a woman and I am very disappointed.
If you're a Sabrina Carpenter fan, then I'm sorry, but you're not convincing us that that album cover was executed satire, because I think people get what she was trying to do, but they just don't like it. Now, before you start, I am not a Sabrina Carpenter hater, but between Sydney Sweeney now selling her bar of soap that now has a hole in the center, and now this album cover, I just feel like if the majority of people are looking at the same thing, regardless of what you as a Sabrina Carpenter fan thinks of it not feeding into the male gaze, unfortunately, my darling, you might be wrong. And listen, it's okay to not have every single female celebrity, to not have every single woman celebrity dominating the music industry, to be the beacon of feminism. Don't get me wrong, I would love it, I would adore it, but let's just be honest, that's not the case. That's not the world that we live in. It's actually okay to not view Sabrina Carpenter as this feminist icon, because quite frankly, is she? And it's beyond okay to acknowledge that. We do not have to lie. And in fact, we would probably respect you more if you were just honest about that fact. I could name at least 20 other feminist icons within the music industry that instantly triumph Sabrina Carpenter. No tea, no shade. That doesn't take away from her artistry or her music ability or anything of that nature. That's just being honest. Please, let's just stop acting as if celebrities are the beacon of feminism, because I promise you, you guys are going to be swiftly disappointed.
What if this is her hand and we've only seen half the image? This is all speculation, but just an idea that I have. And it stems from the Man-Child music video. Man-Child music video starts with a bird riding a turtle. At the end of the music video, the bird is carrying the turtle flying away. Talked about this in my full breakdown of the music video. If you watch the music video, her actions do not align with the lyrics of the song. Her saying that they always choose her, she's not choosing them. Man-Child, why do you always come running to me? Even though she's the one hitchhiking. And somebody commented and pointed this out, that at the end of the music video, it shows how close she was to the city and how all of these men were just basically driving her in circles. But she was that close to getting to where she needed to go. And if she is the bird, if the bird represents her, then perhaps this album is going to be about her recognizing that she had the ability to fly without these men all along. She had the ability to go where she needed to go without having to hitchhike with these men. It could quite literally be an album about her overcoming the need to sensationalize herself, to sexualize herself, to align herself with these men, to palette herself more to these men in order to get her to where she needed to go in her career. In the Rolling Stone article that she released today, she talked about how sex sells. Those are the songs that became the most popular. Her Juno Position thing is what became the most popular about her tour. Trending on social media, all of those things. Perhaps this album is going to tell the story about that. About her discovering she always had the ability to fly without the turtle. And perhaps this image, when we see the full thing, it's going to be her dressed as a man to represent that it really was her doing this to herself, which opens a whole line of conversations that we can have as women about the societal norms and pressure that leads women to diminish themselves or to make themselves more appealing to the male gaze, or just the entire idea of sex selling, regardless of what gender it's selling to. Sex selling because it's controversial, it's scandalous, it's entertaining. So like I said in my previous video, perhaps this is us on the verge of a rebrand for her. And maybe she is wanting to lean into a different aesthetic, but in order for her to get there, she needs to tell the story of why. And so perhaps maybe that is what Man's Best Friend is going to be. And like I said, this is all speculation, so I could be very wrong, and we will only know in time as the album comes out, but it is an interesting theory and she's gotten all of our attention. It will be very interesting to see what she does with it. What are your thoughts? Would you be interested in something like this?
In light of the Sydney Sweeney Sasquatch bathwater soap, I really want to bring back up this video where I asked, why do I hate Sydney Sweeney, but I love Sabrina Carpenter? And lots of comments overnight, hundreds if not thousands, were saying like, oh, you're a hater, you have internalized misogyny, whatever, all these things, which I addressed in the video. I'm aware. In the video, I said, I think she's talented. I think she's beautiful. I think she has way more money than I'll ever have in my life. But like, why do I dislike her, but love Sabrina Carpenter, who has all of those same things, who's also incredibly talented, also incredibly beautiful, also incredibly sexy, also doing all of the things. And I have such a very different view of these two women. I'm like genuinely asking the question, why? And a few people, like this comment, I do think got it right, where it has to do with like what we're leaning into. And this whole soap thing has just like brought it back up for me, where so much of our upbringing as women and what we are told is our value in society is how attractive and how much we appeal to the male gaze, and how our worth is defined by whether or not people find us attractive. Men, specifically. Most beauty standards are set by the idea of like, are men going to find us hot or not? Which, hot take, not a hot take, men will assault corpses and animals. Appealing to their gaze is not a concern of mine. That's the last thing on this earth I want to do. And so to be somebody who's working so hard to decenter their value from the male gaze, seeing somebody lean into it so blatantly, that is what is like upsetting. And I also think it furthers this idea that it's like normalized and okay. The idea that men want soap with Sydney Sweeney's bathwater or we're buying Gamer Girl bathwater, they're not okay. This is why the male loneliness epidemic bullshit is happening, because men are not okay. And I want to be hee hee ha ha. It's a joke. It's not that deep. It's not that deep. It is that deep. It is that deep. And we're enabling it. I gotta get off the
Okay,
internet.
I have a slightly controversial take about Sydney Sweeney's bathwater and how everyone's saying that she's setting feminism back 100 years. And if you look at who's upset, it's mostly all women, saying that she's feeding into the male gaze, she's feeding into the sexualization of women and capitalizing on how she looks. Personal choice? Would me or you sell bathwater soap? Is that the way we would practice feminism? Probably not. But when us women start critiquing other women for the choices that they make, especially if it's too traditional or too sexual for our taste, that's not feminism. We are just creating new rules for how a woman is supposed to behave, which is exactly what the men who have been running the patriarchy have been doing for centuries. This is just a new form of control. Sydney Sweeney is just existing in a world that constantly sexualizes women and rewards it. And she's in on the joke. She's profiting off of it. She's doing it on her terms, and I think that's smart. The hypocrisy here is that when men commodify women, it's seen as, oh, that's exploiting, which is true. But when women commodify themselves, people still get uncomfortable by it. It's almost as if deep down, society is more comfortable with the consumption of women than with women controlling the consumption. It's almost giving horseshoe theory, when you go so far in trying to be woke that you end up in a different version of the same judgmental purist mindset. But this time, instead of saying women should be modest, we're saying that women should only be empowered in this one socially acceptable way. And either way, women are still being told what to do. If a woman wants to be hyper-feminine and profit off of her sex appeal, as long as that's her choice, that is still feminism. Critiquing women for not making the right kind of empowering decision just replaces one kind of control with another. You can't blame women for playing the game that they didn't create. Feminism is literally about autonomy, and tearing down other women because their version of empowerment doesn't match yours, that's not activism.
Shout out to those creators. I really enjoyed hearing their perspectives. And now it is time for my perspective. It is time for Mind Over Media. Welcome to Mind Over Media, my mind over the media, where I get to offer my perspectives on the controversy. As always, no hate intended, these are just my perspectives. Firstly, I want to say something that is very controversial. You guys may hate me after this, okay? You may unsubscribe or whatever you feel like you have to do, but I don't consider myself a feminist. And I'm actually going to edit that sentence very carefully. I don't consider myself a modern feminist. I believe that the word feminist and what it means to be one has changed over the years. I believe that in the past, feminism meant that women were fighting for the rights to be equal to men. And now I feel like that has completely changed. I feel like feminism is about what Sabrina Carpenter and Sydney Sweeney are doing, taking sexuality and making it empowerment and confidence. Or it's about literally bringing down men while uplifting women. You know what I mean? And I just don't consider myself a modern feminist. I don't think it's about equality anymore. I think feminism has gotten extremely complicated, and that's not all because of women's fault. That does have something to do with men, obviously, and society in general, but I just don't consider myself to be one. Right now, what we're seeing isn't even feminism evolving, in my opinion. It's just feminism being packaged. In this era, in this generation, empowerment is about optics. If a woman chooses to be objectified, we call it power. If she looks confident doing it, we call it art. But I think that oversimplifies what feminism actually stands for. Feminism isn't about trading sexuality control for another. It should be and used to be about complexity and autonomy, not just performance. And a lot of these empowering images that we see in today's generation is still selling us the same idea of controlled femininity, it's just with different captions. I also want to talk about why white blonde femininity gets a pass. I know not everything's to do with race, I know, but it kind of is in this case. I think it does have something to do with white feminism and black feminism. I think they're two different things. It's also kind of the reason why I don't particularly have like a crazy opinion on this, because I think that it's white feminism. It's what white feminism has always represented. Like literally, yeah. It's interesting who gets to play with these ideas of feminism without consequences. White blonde women in media have had the opportunity to experiment with provocative and innocence way more freely than a black or brown woman could ever do. White women are allowed to play the bad girl and they're allowed to play the good girl because society and culture has already coded them as safe. When someone like Sabrina Carpenter is posed for a picture on all fours, it's framed as such a high concept, right? Symbolic even. If a black or a brown woman did the same pose with the same concept, what would society call it? Ghetto. Because Nicki Minaj has done the same thing and they called her ghetto. It would be labeled and has been labeled as vulgar, aggressive, and inappropriate. Either way, neither of which, whether a white person or a black person does it, is not feminism. That is a brand of feminism designed to be consumed. Now, since I was negative Nancy about everything, I'm going to give my closing thoughts about what I think feminism actually needs right now versus what it is. Feminism doesn't need more aesthetic empowerment. It doesn't need more Instagram captions of being that girl or owning your body. What it needs is nuance. It needs space for it to get messy. It needs space for it to get creative. Unfiltered power, not just power that's pretty, not power that's performative. I'm not mad at Sabrina or even Lana Del Rey, who does the same thing, who was praised for literally years. I'm just asking, what do we really call progress here? Why do we keep praising the same look, the same message and the same image just because it has new packaging. We've heard enough from me. It's time to hear from you guys. Are we mistaking aesthetic rebellion for feminism? Why do you guys think that white femininity gets the power to reclaim more objectification than other cultures? Do you think that women using submissive imagery, on their own terms of course, still reinforces old ideas? Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And okay, yeah, love you. Bye. Mwah.